This happened 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't fully recovered emotionally. Physically, I'm fine. Mentally, I've aged a decade. It all started when my friend Danielle asked me to do her a favor. We've known each other since college, and we've always had this weirdly flirty but never dated kind of friendship. She's beautiful, smart, and absolutely terrifying. You know the type. So when she called me with that sweet voice laced with chaos and said, "Hey, you doing anything next weekend?" I should have known to run. But like an idiot, I said no. Danielle explained that she had a massive family reunion coming up. Like generational. Extended family flying in from all over the country. And she didn't want to show up solo because, in her words, if I hear one more aunt ask why I'm single, I'm going to fake my death. So she needed a fake boyfriend. Not just someone to stand next to her, but a full-blown, PDA-capable, story-aligned, believably in love fake boyfriend. I had a pretty open weekend and zero self-preservation instincts, so I agreed. We spent a few hours going over our backstory, how we met, bookstore, first date, coffee, then a jazz club, our shared interests, music, dogs, true crime podcasts, and inside jokes. We made up a fake cat named Chairman Meow that we almost adopted. She even gave me a crash course on her family, who to avoid, who would test me, who I'd probably like. Fast forward to Saturday. I show up at this huge rented lodge in the woods. I'm immediately greeted by a hurricane of aunts, uncles, cousins, toddlers, and dogs. I meet Danielle's parents first, who are way too excited to meet me. Her dad claps me on the back like we're old war buddies and whispers, "Good luck." I laugh. He doesn't. We're there for 3 days. The first day is fine. I'm introduced to at least 40 people whose names I immediately forget. Danielle holds my hand at strategic times. I brush her hair behind her ear once, a move she told me would sell the performance. And we even do this obnoxiously cute couples laugh at dinner that gets her grandma teary-eyed. But then night one. There's a bonfire. Drinks are flowing. Someone breaks out a guitar. It's all very Hallmark movie. Then her cousin Lucas decides it's a great time for Truth or Dare. Couples edition. Danielle gives me a look that screams abort mission. But it's too late. We're roped in. First few rounds are tame. Then someone dares another couple to swap clothes. Then someone else gets dared to reenact their first kiss. That's when it happens. Lucas grins and says, "All right, Danielle, and what's your name again?" "Steve." "It's Tyler," I say.
"Right."
"Tyler, let's see you two reenact your first kiss. Full detail. Show us the love." I glance at Danielle. Her eyes say we don't have to do this. But her mouth, to my shock, says, "Okay." Now, we'd never kissed. But the crowd is watching, and I'm already this deep in. So we go for it. And here's where I really screw up.
We kiss.
And it's not just a kiss. It's a kiss. Like, the kind that makes everyone around you uncomfortable and kind of jealous. And in that moment, I forget we're pretending. I completely forget. I'm into it. She's into it. The fire crackles. Someone actually whoops. When we pull away, Danielle's eyes are wide. I realize I'm holding her waist. She realizes her hand is on my chest. We both laugh it off, but something shifted. The next day is weird. Not bad, just charged. There's tension. We keep catching each other's eyes. She brushes against me when she doesn't need to. I overcompensate by being way too enthusiastic about everything. Wow, love this casserole. Oh man, what a great lawn game. I'm spiraling. Then her uncle, this mountain of a man named Frank, pulls me aside. He smells like cigars and decisions. He says, "You really love her?" I nod because it feels like the safest answer. He narrows his eyes.
"Good.
She's had enough heartbreak." Then he hugs me. Full bear hug. I lose feeling in my arms. That night, we're in the kitchen alone, helping clean up. Danielle finally says, "Hey, about that kiss." I panic. I say, "Yeah, great acting." She looks crushed.
"Right."
Acting. Cue me mentally punching myself in the face. Then, plot twist. Danielle's younger cousin, this TikTok-obsessed 16-year-old named Riley, corners me and says she knows. She has detective vision, whatever that means. She tells me our story is full of holes. The cat story was too much. Nobody believes we met in a bookstore because nobody reads anymore. She says unless we come clean, she's going to blow the whole thing wide open in a slideshow presentation she's prepared, just in case. This kid brought slides. So Danielle and I regroup. We decide to come clean but gently. At the family breakfast the next morning, Danielle stands up and says, "So, funny story. Tyler and I aren't technically dating."
Gasps.
Her mom actually drops her fork. Danielle continues, "We're just really good friends. But this weekend kind of complicated that." Now everyone is staring, including me, because I did not know that last part was coming. She looks at me and says, "I think I maybe don't want to fake it anymore." Silence. My brain is screaming. And then, somehow, my mouth finds its way to the right words. "Yeah," I say. "Same." More silence. Then Grandma starts clapping. Soon everyone is clapping. Someone yells, "We called it." It's pure chaos. Later, Danielle and I sneak off and talk for real. Turns out the kiss messed with her head too. Turns out she'd been catching feelings for a while. Turns out I'm an idiot for not seeing it sooner. We left that reunion as a real couple. But the reason this is a TIFU? Because now her family is obsessed with me. I get group texts from her aunts. Her dad wants me to help him fix his deck. Her grandma already refers to me as my sweet boy. I can't escape. I have been adopted. And the worst part? Riley now claims she orchestrated the whole thing. She's taking credit like some kind of love puppet master. She even made a TikTok about it. It has 3 million views.
So yeah.
I faked being in love with my best friend and accidentally ended up in a real relationship and an even realer family. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. TIFU by volunteering to dog sit for my boss while he was on vacation and turning it into the worst week of my life, complete with cops, crying kids, angry neighbors, and a trip to the ER. It started last Monday. My boss, Greg, mid-50s, hardcore hiker, guy who once ran a meeting while literally bleeding from his knee, was heading to Utah for a week of backpacking with zero cell service. He needed someone to watch his sweet old dog, a golden retriever named Molly. I figured, hey, score some brownie points, hang out with a chill dog, maybe raid his liquor cabinet. Easy win. First red flag. He gave me a literal binder titled Molly's Routine. Like, tabs and laminated pages. I laughed it off because the guy treats his dog like a child. No biggie. Until I actually read it. There were 10 different supplements she needed at different times of day. She got massaged before her walks. She had a playlist. A playlist. Still, I was determined. How hard could it be? Day 1. I show up at Greg's absurdly clean, open-concept suburban house. Molly greets me like I'm her long-lost son. So far, so good. I unpack my stuff, turn on Netflix, and we're chilling. She listens to her yoga music and falls asleep on a memory foam bed better than mine. Around 10 p.m., I let her out into the yard. She goes about her business. I scroll on my phone. And then silence. Too much silence. I look up. Molly is gone. There's a huge wooden fence.
How?
I sprint outside, calling her name like a maniac. Nothing. Just silence and sprinklers. I panic and jump the fence.
Still nothing.
30 minutes later, I'm running through the neighborhood in socks, yelling, "Molly, Molly," like I'm in a Nicholas Sparks novel. A neighbor yells from a window that they're calling the cops if I don't shut up. I keep yelling. At 12:47 a.m., I find her 3 blocks away lying on a stranger's lawn, chewing on a flamingo lawn ornament like it's a chew toy. She looks so proud. I scoop her up, apologize profusely to a man in his robe who looks ready to shoot me, and jog back. Crisis averted, but I'm shaken. I find the binder. Turns out there's a panic hole in the corner of the yard she's used for years to sneak out when she gets stressed. I patch it with bricks. End of story?
Nope.
Day 3. Molly gets diarrhea. Explosive, biblical, apocalyptic diarrhea. It's on the rug, the walls. Her.
Me.
I Google dog diarrhea and find out one of the supplements may be expired. I call the vet who knows Molly by name. He asks if I followed the sensitive tummy protocol in the binder. I hadn't. There was a protocol with a flowchart. I'm elbows deep in disinfectant when the doorbell rings. It's a guy from the HOA. Apparently, someone reported a vagrant running through yards yelling about a dog and then dumping trash into public sewer lines, which I now realize refers to me hosing off Molly in the street. I explain. He does not care. He gives me a warning and leaves. Molly throws up on my shoe. Day 5. I give Molly a bath to get rid of whatever swamp stench she's collected. She hates baths. As I'm trying to get her back inside, she bolts. Not out the fence. Oh no. Through the front door, which I stupidly left ajar. She tears off down the street like a golden missile. Now here's the part where I become a criminal. I grab a leash, chase her, and finally corner her in a neighbor's garage. Only it's not a garage. It's a converted studio, with a guy inside, naked, doing yoga. Our eyes meet. Molly knocks over a lamp. I stammer out an apology and try to clip the leash. The guy freaks out, yells something about trespassing, and I panic. I run. With Molly. An hour later, a cruiser pulls up in front of Greg's house. The cop is holding my driver's license, which I dropped during my little burglary. I spend the next 2 hours explaining that I wasn't stealing, peeping, or assaulting anyone.
Just dog sitting.
The guy drops charges, mostly because his wife finds the whole thing hilarious and is a dog person. The cop gives me a formal warning and tells me to keep my dog under control. Molly farts loudly. Day 6. Greg texts from a rare patch of reception. How's my girl? Smiley face. I respond with a picture of Molly looking majestic under a blanket, like nothing's happened. I do not tell him I may be banned from walking her within 500 feet of a yoga studio. Final day. Greg returns. I've cleaned everything, scrubbed the rug, refilled the fancy dog food, even printed a fake Molly's daily report to make it look like I kept logs. He's thrilled. Says I'm the only person he trusts with her now. As he's unpacking, he casually says, "Oh, by the way, did the neighbor say anything? Last time someone watched her, there was drama." I nod politely. I do not tell him about the cops, the HOA, the yoga guy, or the diarrhea apocalypse. He hands me a bottle of bourbon as a thank you. I go home, open it, and drink half while Molly's fur still lingers on my clothes. I got promoted 2 weeks later. But I still flinch every time I hear a golden retriever bark. TIFU by accidentally sending a photo of my junk to my boss while trying to send a picture of my lunch. So, this all started on a pretty ordinary Wednesday morning. I was sitting at my desk in the office, scrolling through emails, when I remembered that I hadn't had a proper lunch for the past couple of days. I decided it was finally time to treat myself, so I ordered a nice salad and a side of some gourmet soup from a local deli. While I waited for the food to arrive, I figured I would entertain myself by catching up with my phone and maybe share the food with some coworkers. Now, you need to understand something about me. I'm the type of person who takes their food seriously, especially when I've ordered something I think is particularly fancy or well-presented. So, I decided to take a photo of my lunch before diving in. I wanted to send it to a couple of my friends in our group chat to show off how fancy I was for ordering the salad with avocado and quinoa in it. You know, the type of stuff that makes you feel like a refined adult. I opened up my phone's camera, snapped a few pics of the salad with the soup in the background, and then started typing out a quick message to my friends. At the same time, I had an email open from my boss, asking if I could send over the presentation slides for the meeting later in the afternoon. The meeting was about a project we were working on, and I'd been a little behind on getting all the slides ready. I had promised to send them first thing in the morning, and I was getting ready to send the final drafts. I wanted to look professional and organized, so I had everything prepared and ready to go. I also noticed that my boss was online and had been responding to my messages quickly, so I figured I should send the slides as soon as possible to stay on top of things. This is where the mistake happened. While multitasking with my phone and trying to finish up the email to my boss, I accidentally opened the wrong image. You see, I had a few photos I had taken recently, some from a recent vacation, some from that morning, and unfortunately, a couple from a more personal nature. And yes, I'll admit, I should have probably cleaned up my phone's gallery before opening it up in a professional context. But it didn't even occur to me that I had those images mixed in. So, in a half-hazy, distracted state, I swiped through my phone's gallery to select the right photo to send in my email. I was trying to find the image of my lunch, but I clicked on something else by mistake. I didn't even check what it was. I was too busy typing the email, focusing on getting the damn thing out the door before I got caught up in something else. And then, as if the universe itself had conspired against me, I hit send, before realizing what I had just done. The instant I pressed send, a wave of panic flooded over me. I saw the thumbnail image pop up at the bottom of the email, and that's when I realized the mistake. My heart dropped into my stomach. The image that I had just sent was definitely not the picture of my lunch. It was, in fact, a very close-up photo of my genitals. I was mortified. For a split second, I thought I might be able to stop the email somehow. Maybe I could hit the back button on my phone, somehow cancel it, or delete the email from my sent items. But no, it had already gone through. The email was delivered. My boss, the person who I've been working with for years, had now received an image of my junk. I froze, staring at my phone, not knowing what to do. My boss is a pretty chill guy, but he's also very professional. This was the last thing I wanted to send him. This was a serious misstep that could cost me my job if he took it the wrong way. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, just staring at the email. I could already imagine the questions that were going to flood in. What was he going to think? Was he going to be angry? Was he going to laugh it off? I honestly didn't know which scenario was worse. I mean, I've had awkward situations before, but this was next level. After what felt like several minutes, but was probably closer to 30 seconds, I tried to salvage the situation. I quickly typed out a follow-up email, trying to cover my tracks as best I could. Hi, boss's name. I just realized that I accidentally attached the wrong file in my last email. I was trying to send the presentation slides, but I mistakenly attached an inappropriate photo. Please disregard that email. I apologize for the mistake. Best regards. My name. I try to keep it as professional as possible, though in hindsight it was a pretty ridiculous move. But at least it was an attempt to cover up the absolute disaster I had just unleashed upon myself. I quickly hit send and prayed he'd see it before he had a chance to open the email. Minutes later, I heard a ping from my inbox. My stomach churned. It was my boss's response. I hesitated, bracing myself for a response full of rage or confusion.
But no.
It wasn't what I expected. My name. Please call me when you have a chance. We need to discuss this. I stared at the message for a moment. I had to call him. There was no getting around it. I opened my phone, dialed his number, and took a deep breath. When he answered, he sounded calm, almost too calm. Hey, my name, he said. Listen, I just saw the email you sent, and I have to admit, I'm a little confused. I don't think that's the kind of content you were intending to share with me, right? I was trying to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the sweat forming on my palms. Right? That was definitely not what I meant to send.
It was a mistake. I was trying to send the presentation slides, but yeah.
I really messed up. He chuckled, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe I had dodged a bullet. Well, it's not the worst thing that's happened this week, but let's make sure we keep the personal photos. Well, personal, huh, he said. I let out a long sigh of relief. It wasn't a firing offense. He wasn't going to tell HR. He was going to let it slide. But he did remind me that I should probably delete a few photos off my phone. And I totally agreed with him on that one. We hung up, and I sat back in my chair, still a bit shaken. What a nightmare. The moral of the story? Be careful what's in your photo gallery and always double-check your attachments before hitting send. And for the love of all that's holy, don't mix up lunch pics with other pics. Trust me, it's not worth it. TIFU by thinking it was a good idea to surprise my girlfriend with a weekend getaway, but instead turned it into the worst experience of my life. So here's the deal. I've been dating this amazing girl, Emily, for about 6 months now. Things have been going really well, and I wanted to do something special for her. We both have hectic work schedules, and the only time we get to relax is during weekends, so I thought, why not plan a surprise weekend getaway to a nearby cabin? It seemed like a great idea at the time. A cozy, romantic cabin in the woods, surrounded by nature, far away from the stress of city life. I spent hours looking up different cabin rental websites. I knew she loved nature and had mentioned wanting to escape the city for a weekend, so this seemed like the perfect way to show her how much I care. I found a beautiful cabin about 2 hours outside of the city, tucked away in a secluded part of the forest. The pictures online made it look like something out of a fairy tale, a charming, rustic log cabin with a huge fireplace, a hot tub, and sweeping views of the forest. The reviews were stellar, with people raving about how peaceful and serene the location was. I immediately made the booking, paid in full, and started planning all the fun activities we would do. I was so excited about the trip that I didn't even stop to consider that I might be missing some key details. The next day, I told Emily that I had planned a surprise for us over the weekend and wouldn't tell her where we were going. She loves surprises, so she was pumped, though she was definitely curious about what I had planned. I told her to pack for a weekend getaway, and she was ecstatic. She thought I was just going to book us a hotel or something nice in the city. When she found out it was a cabin in the woods, she was even more excited. So the weekend came, and we hit the road. I had arranged everything so that all she had to do was enjoy the ride. As we drove, I kept teasing her with little hints about the place. She kept asking questions, and I kept giving her vague answers to keep the mystery alive. By the time we reached the turnoff for the cabin, we were both pumped to get out of the car and explore. When we arrived, I could tell right away that something was off. The area around the cabin looked a little run down. I figured it was just the rugged charm of the place, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The driveway was uneven and filled with rocks, and there was a heavy, damp smell in the air. But I brushed it off and opened the cabin door to show Emily inside. And that's when it all started going downhill. The cabin was, for lack of a better word, terrifying. It looked nothing like the pictures I had seen online. The fireplace was a dilapidated mess, and the once beautiful wood floors were now cracked and dirty. The hot tub was clearly out of order, and the windows were fogged up from years of neglect. There were cobwebs in the corners. The furniture was old and falling apart, and it looked like no one had cleaned the place in months. The romantic getaway I had envisioned quickly turned into a horror movie set. Emily's face dropped when she saw it. What is this?" she asked, her voice faltering a little. I tried to reassure her, but I could tell she was already disappointed. "Look, it's just a little rustic, but it's still a cozy getaway," I said, trying to put a positive spin on things. "We can still have a great time, just give it a chance." I immediately called the rental agency to see if I could get a refund or at least switch us to another cabin. Unfortunately, it was a Saturday night and no one was answering. I left a voicemail, but I knew we were probably stuck here for the weekend. I was feeling embarrassed, but tried to stay calm for Emily's sake. We decided to make the best of it and explore the surrounding area. We walked through the woods for a while, but Emily was obviously not in the mood to enjoy nature anymore. I could tell she was silently fuming, but she tried to hide it for my sake. We got back to the cabin, and that's when the real problem started. First, the power went out. I don't know if it was the storm that had rolled in, or if it was just because the place was falling apart, but the lights flickered and then died completely. No big deal, I thought. I'd just light the fireplace, which should still be functional, right?
Wrong.
The fireplace was broken beyond repair. It was completely useless. Then, I went to turn on the stove to make us some dinner. It didn't work either. By this point, we were both starving and trying to stay calm, but Emily was visibly frustrated. I had to break it to her that I had forgotten to pack any snacks or takeout, because I was so caught up in the idea of a romantic weekend. We had nothing to eat but some granola bars and bottled water. Not exactly the fancy dinner I had envisioned. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, we discovered that the bathroom plumbing was clogged. We were both too afraid to use the toilet, and the bathroom had a musty smell that only got worse over time. It felt like everything was falling apart, and I couldn't believe that my well-intentioned surprise had turned into a total disaster. That night, we tried to make the best of it by watching a movie on my phone, but the Wi-Fi didn't work either. It was as if the universe was conspiring against me. We both went to bed early, but I could tell Emily wasn't happy, and honestly, neither was I. I kept apologizing, but it didn't feel like enough. The next morning, things didn't improve. The weather was bad, so we couldn't go hiking or do anything outdoors. We ended up sitting in the cabin all day, bored out of our minds. The whole weekend felt like a giant waste of time and money. Finally, I managed to get in touch with the rental agency, and they offered to refund me some of the cost. But that didn't change the fact that the trip was already ruined. By the time we left on Sunday, Emily wasn't angry, but I could tell she was disappointed in me. We didn't talk much on the drive back, and when we got home, I promised I would make it up to her. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever hear the end of it. She's not the type to hold grudges, but I know this weekend will haunt me forever. So yeah, TIFU by trying to plan a romantic surprise getaway and instead giving my girlfriend a weekend from hell. This happened a few weeks ago, and I'm still cringing thinking about it. I was visiting my cousin, who lives in a small, quiet town a few hours from where I live. The town is the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and if you're new, you're immediately noticed. I'm not exactly a small town kind of guy, big city living, fast-paced life, but I was looking forward to the weekend getaway. A little break from the city hustle and bustle, and a chance to hang out with family I don't get to see often. My cousin, let's call him Jake, is a laid-back guy in his mid-30s. He's one of those people who's always easygoing, never stressed, and just knows how to relax. We got along well, even though we were very different. He worked as a mechanic, had a few buddies in town, and mostly spent his days tinkering with cars or hiking around the nearby woods. I, on the other hand, work in a high-stress office job, have a tendency to overthink things, and hate hiking unless there's a Starbucks at the end of the trail. On the first day, Jake and I decided to go out for drinks at a local pub, nothing fancy, just a chill, typical small-town bar. I wasn't expecting anything wild. I figured we'd grab a couple of beers, chat, and go back to his place to watch movies. But Jake warned me that the bar was a hot spot for the locals, especially on a Friday night. Apparently, they had live music and people liked to dance. I didn't think much of it at the time. We got to the bar around 8 p.m., and it was packed. The music was louder than I expected, but not in a bad way. It felt like the whole town had come out for a good time. The floor was covered with people of all ages, people I'd never seen before, but who were probably lifelong friends or neighbors. I'm the type of person who tends to keep to myself in places like that, especially when I don't know anyone. I was standing by the bar, nursing my drink, and trying to blend in when Jake introduced me to a couple of his friends. One guy, Mark, was particularly friendly. He made it a point to greet me, shake my hand, and get me talking. He was in his mid-40s, had the kind of demeanor that made you feel like you could tell him anything, and he talked with a kind of ease that I could never quite pull off. Before long, we were chatting about cars, work, and life in general. After a while, Mark invited me to join the rest of the group at a table in the back of the bar. I figured it would be a good way to meet some of Jake's other friends, so I agreed. When I walked over to the table, there were already 4 people sitting there. Mark, a woman named Claire, who was probably in her late 30s, a younger guy who looked like he had just graduated college, and a woman named Vanessa, who was probably in her early 30s. I sat down next to Vanessa, and we immediately struck up a conversation. She had a kind of infectious laugh that made her easy to talk to, and before I knew it, we were chatting about everything from books to movies to random weird facts we had picked up over the years. I was feeling pretty good about myself. Maybe I wasn't so out of place in small-town life after all. After a few rounds of drinks, the live band started playing. The music wasn't my style, but I could tell that everyone else was into it. People started heading out to the dance floor, and soon enough, there was a full-on dance party going on. Now, I'm not the best dancer. Actually, I'm probably one of the worst dancers I know, but Vanessa insisted that I join her on the floor. Here's where the F in TIFU really kicks in. Vanessa seemed to have no reservations about dancing. She was laughing and twirling around, And at first, I thought she was just trying to get me to loosen up. I wasn't terrible, I guess. I can keep a beat when it's just me and a few drinks in me. But as the song went on, I started to get more into it. The people around me were all dancing like they were in some sort of synchronized, choreographed routine. It was impressive, honestly. I tried my best to follow the rhythm, but let's just say, I wasn't exactly nailing the moves. Then, out of nowhere, Vanessa suddenly grabs my hand and pulls me into a spin. This wasn't some light, casual spin, no, she whipped me around with enough force that I ended up tripping over my own feet. Before I knew it, I was headed straight for the floor. The only thing that broke my fall was my stomach slamming into the corner of the table. You know how in movies, when something embarrassing happens, it seems to slow down, like everything is happening in slow motion? That's what it felt like. I could feel my face turning red before I even hit the ground, and then there was this awful, sickening crunch as my body collided with the table. The music stopped for a split second. Everything seemed to freeze, and then the bar erupted into laughter. I wasn't hurt, thankfully. Nothing more than a bruised ego and a sore stomach, but the embarrassment was unbearable. I immediately scrambled to get up, but I couldn't even look anyone in the eye. I didn't know what was worse. The fact that I had just wiped out in front of a bunch of people I didn't know, or the fact that Vanessa was trying so hard not to laugh that she almost choked on her drink. Mark, being the good guy that he is, rushed over to help me up, and of course, he had to make a joke about my impressive move on the dance floor. I tried to laugh it off, but there's no coming back from something like that. The rest of the night was a blur of forced smiles, awkward small talk, and people checking on me as if I had just experienced a traumatic life event. But that wasn't the end of it. The next morning, I woke up to a group message on the local town's Facebook page. Apparently, someone had caught the entire incident on video. It wasn't just a few seconds of me tripping and falling. It was a full-on video of my spin, the dramatic stumble, and the unfortunate table collision. And, to make matters worse, the video had been shared around the entire town. By the time I left that afternoon, I was pretty much the town's new dance floor disaster celebrity. Every person I saw had a smirk or a chuckle to offer. I couldn't even go to the gas station without someone making a comment about my performance. It was the kind of attention that no one ever wants.
So, yeah.
That was the weekend. I learned the hard way that small towns are not the best places for big city awkwardness. I will never forget that fall, and I'll never look at a dance floor the same way again. Next time I visit, I'm sticking to the bar stool. TIFU by trying to impress my girlfriend with a surprise dinner and almost burning down her apartment. It all started on a Tuesday afternoon when I decided to surprise my girlfriend, Emma, with a special dinner. We've been dating for about 6 months, and things were going really well. I wanted to do something thoughtful to show her how much I care. She loves cooking shows, especially those fancy ones where the chefs whip up gourmet dishes in what seems like no time at all, so I thought it would be a perfect idea to try cooking a fancy meal for her. Now, I have to admit, I'm not exactly a Michelin star chef. In fact, I'm more of a takeout and microwave kind of guy. I can cook the basics, eggs, pasta, the occasional grilled cheese, but anything beyond that is a bit of a mystery to me. But I was determined to make this work. I'd seen Emma talk about how much she loved a dish called beef Wellington, and I figured it was the perfect challenge for me. If I could pull it off, she'd be so impressed. I mean, how hard could it be, right? I spent the next few hours Googling recipes. The more I read, the more I realized I was in over my head. There were so many steps: searing the beef, wrapping it in pastry, making a mushroom duxelle, whatever that was, and they all seemed so complicated. But I was committed. I even went to the store and bought the ingredients, which included some very expensive cuts of beef. If I was going to fail, at least I was going to fail with style, right? I got back to her apartment in the late afternoon, armed with my groceries and a newfound sense of confidence. Emma wasn't supposed to come over until later in the evening, so I had a few hours to work with. I started by preheating the oven like the recipe told me to, and then began on the beef. I was so proud of myself for getting everything set up. It looked like the perfect steak sitting there in the pan, sizzling away. I even remembered to sear the sides. This was it. I was going to nail this. Then came the mushroom duxelle. I had never made anything like it before, but it didn't seem that hard. I chopped up the mushrooms, onions, and garlic and sautéed them until they were soft. But somewhere along the way, I messed up. I didn't cook the mixture down enough, so it ended up too watery. I tried to salvage it by cooking it on high heat, but all that did was make the mushrooms burn a little. Now, I had a weirdly soggy, slightly charred mess instead of a rich, earthy mushroom mixture. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I just shrugged it off and decided to move on. Next, it was time to wrap the beef in puff pastry. This was when things really started to spiral. I didn't realize how delicate the puff pastry was. I unrolled it on the counter and tried to wrap the beef in it, but the pastry kept tearing. I panicked. I didn't have enough puff pastry to start over, so I tried to patch the tears with bits of dough. It looked like something out of a horror movie. There were gaps everywhere, and the beef wasn't even fully covered. By the time I managed to get the Wellington in the oven, I had already started sweating bullets. I was praying that it would somehow come together during the cooking process. I checked the oven's timer, which was set for 40 minutes, and tried to clean up the mess I'd made in the kitchen. This is where I should have stopped and taken a breath, but I didn't. I was so fixated on making everything perfect that I completely ignored the fact that the kitchen was starting to smell wrong. The recipe had said the pastry should be golden and crisp, but mine was already starting to look a little too dark. And when I opened the oven to check on it, the inside was oozing a disturbing amount of liquid. I realized I had forgotten to pat dry the beef after searing it. All that moisture had seeped into the pastry, making it soggy instead of crisp. I closed the oven and turned the temperature down, hoping to salvage what little was left of the dish. But by this point, smoke was starting to curl out from the oven. I opened the door again, and to my horror, I saw flames dancing inside the oven. The puff pastry had caught fire. Panic set in. I was in full-on disaster mode now. I didn't know what to do. I grabbed the nearest dish towel and started waving it at the oven, hoping to somehow smother the flames, but of course, that only made the fire worse. I ran to the sink and turned on the water, but by the time I got back, the flames had spread to the edges of the oven. It was at this point that I realized I was about to burn down her apartment. Not only was the food ruined, but I was about to destroy everything in sight. I panicked even more and grabbed my phone to call 911, but in my frantic state, I accidentally dialed Emma instead. She picked up immediately, sounding all chipper and excited. "Hey babe, what's up?" she said, completely unaware of the chaos unfolding in the background. I could barely get any words out. "Fire, oven, help. I messed up." I managed to stammer. There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by an incredulous, "What? What do you mean, fire? Are you okay?" "I set the oven on fire. I need you to come back now," I shouted. Okay, stay calm. "I'm on my way," she said, and then hung up. In the meantime, I realized I wasn't doing myself any favors by panicking. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from under the sink and tried to put out the flames. After a couple of failed attempts, I finally managed to douse the fire. But the damage was already done. The kitchen was covered in a layer of smoke, and the smell of burnt pastry and charred beef filled the apartment. Emma arrived about 15 minutes later, her face a mix of confusion and concern. "What the hell happened?" she asked, walking in and immediately coughing from the smoke. I stood there, ashamed, covered in soot, and smelling like a charred mess. I tried to make beef Wellington. It went horribly wrong. "I'm so sorry." She took one look at the scene and burst out laughing. "Oh my God, I can't believe you set the oven on fire trying to make a fancy dinner. I'm so impressed with your dedication to the cause, though. You could have just ordered pizza, you know." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at that point. We ended up ordering pizza after all, and I promised her I'd never attempt to cook again unless it was something simple, like boiling water. The rest of the night was fine, aside from the lingering smell of burnt food, but I still haven't lived down the whole setting the kitchen on fire incident. The worst part? I never even got to show off my cooking skills because my idea of surprising her was nearly burning down her apartment. We both laugh about it now, but I'll never forget that night. Moral of the story: if you're not a professional chef, maybe leave the beef Wellington to the pros and stick with something you know you can actually make without setting off the smoke detector. TIFU by trying to surprise my girlfriend with a fancy dinner, but ended up locking myself in my apartment with no way out. So, here's what happened. A few weeks ago, my girlfriend and I had a pretty rough patch. We'd been fighting over small things. Work stress was piling up, and I wasn't putting as much effort into the relationship as I should have. It wasn't anything major, but it felt like the relationship was starting to fade a little. To fix things, I decided I was going to surprise her with a grand gesture. Something thoughtful, romantic, and unforgettable. I'd been listening to a lot of relationship advice from podcasts, reading up on what women really want, and I came to the conclusion that I needed to step up my game. I decided to plan the perfect evening. I was going to cook a delicious 3-course meal, light some candles, put on a nice shirt, I know, revolutionary, and really show her that I was serious about putting effort into our relationship. I imagined her walking into the apartment, overwhelmed with emotion because of how amazing everything would be. Maybe there'd be tears, maybe a kiss, and maybe, just maybe, she'd see me as the perfect partner again. The first hurdle was the meal. I'm not a terrible cook, but I'm no gourmet chef either. I figured I could handle something basic, pasta, a salad, and a nice dessert. Easy, right?
Wrong.
I had this vision of the meal being spectacular, so I decided to do a bit of research and even found a recipe for homemade garlic bread that required me to make the dough from scratch. I mean, how hard could it be? Long story short, I ended up with dough that didn't rise properly, a sauce that tasted more like burnt ketchup than marinara, and a salad that was less fresh and more too late for the grocery store. But I didn't let it get me down. I put on my best apron, powered through, and somehow managed to make everything look semi-decent, even if the flavors didn't quite match what I imagined in my head. Now, for the setup. I wanted the atmosphere to be perfect, so I spent an embarrassing amount of time lighting candles around the apartment. I went full Pinterest mode, scattering tea lights on every surface, and even set up fairy lights across the living room. It looked like something out of a rom-com, which was exactly the vibe I was going for. I also made sure to put on the playlist of slow love songs she always plays when we hang out. You know, the kind of playlist that's so predictable, it's almost cringe, but still undeniably romantic in the right moment. All that was left was the final touch, locking the door. This is where my big mistake happened. See, my girlfriend had a key to the apartment, but we had a bit of a running joke about me always locking the door. It was the kind of thing where she'd come over after work and ring the bell a million times because I was too lazy to open the door for her. I'd usually shout, "I locked the door because I don't trust you to walk in without ringing the bell." It's the kind of harmless, dumb humor we'd gotten used to over the years. To make sure she wouldn't be annoyed by the door being locked, I decided I'd leave it unlocked for the evening, an extra little gesture of thoughtfulness. That way, she could just walk in without needing to knock or ring the bell, a little surprise for her when she arrived. I thought I was being clever. The moment I closed the door behind me to get the table set up, I realized I had made a huge error. My phone had been left on the kitchen counter, and I didn't bring it with me. This wouldn't be an issue except for the fact that the only key to the apartment was hanging on the key hook right next to the door. Meaning, when I closed the door to set the table, I had inadvertently locked myself inside the apartment. I tried to remain calm. It's fine, I told myself. I'll just call her. She can pick up the key and come unlock the door. But then I realized I'd left my phone inside. So, I tried to call out to her, even though I knew she wouldn't be able to hear me from the hallway. I banged on the door and yelled her name for a few minutes, but no response. She wasn't due to arrive for another 30 minutes, and it was already 15 minutes past the time I was supposed to be waiting. I had no idea if she had already left her house, or was still getting ready. In a panic, I checked every window in my apartment to see if there was a way to sneak out. Nope. My second-floor apartment was too high up to jump, and I couldn't get the windows to open fully. I ran around the apartment, trying to see if I could crawl through one of the small gaps, but I wasn't about to embarrass myself by breaking the window and ending up on some local news story as man with failed romantic dinner. Desperation set in. I started pacing back and forth, trying to think of any solution that would get me out of this mess. After what felt like an eternity, I noticed something. A sliver of hope. My neighbor, Jerry, lived next door, and while we didn't talk much, he did have a spare key to my apartment. We'd agreed on it once in case of emergencies. I grabbed my coat, planning to knock on his door and beg him to come to my rescue. The only issue? Jerry had just gone on vacation that morning. His apartment was locked, and there was no way to reach him. At this point, I was in full panic mode. The dinner was ruined. The apartment was a mess, and I was trapped in my own home with nothing to do but wait. I even tried calling her from the landline. Yes, we still have one. But of course, she didn't pick up. Finally, after what felt like the longest half hour of my life, she arrived at the door. When I heard the knock, I rushed to open it, but of course, I was still locked inside. I couldn't even pretend like everything was okay anymore. She saw my face, and instantly, the disappointment was obvious. To make matters worse, I didn't even get to explain why I had locked myself inside. She was annoyed from the moment she stepped in. The meal was barely edible, and the mood was entirely ruined. We ended up sitting on the couch, eating takeout Chinese food while I half-heartedly explained how I had messed everything up by locking myself in. Looking back, I wish I had just stuck to a simpler plan. Sometimes, a nice gesture doesn't need to be grand to be meaningful. In the end, my surprise dinner became a hilarious story to laugh about, but I'll never hear the end of it. She always jokes that she'll never let me live it down. In conclusion, don't overthink it. If you lock yourself in your apartment and can't get out, no romantic gesture can save you from looking like a complete idiot. This happened about a year ago, but the shame still lingers, and my friends will never let me live it down. So, for context, I live in a fairly quiet, suburban neighborhood. Everyone knows each other just enough to wave and smile, but not enough to have regular conversations. I moved here 3 years ago after a rough breakup, and was just trying to get my life together. At the time of this incident, I was working from home full-time as a freelance graphic designer, and I'd just gotten a puppy, Charlie, a golden retriever with the energy of a nuclear reactor. Charlie needed a lot of walks, and I mean a lot. Morning, afternoon, evening, late night Zoom eyes, you name it. I was constantly outside, and slowly people started recognizing me as that guy with the hyper dog. I liked the title. It felt like I had a place in the neighborhood. Here's where it starts to go downhill. One morning, I'd just gotten back from a jog with Charlie. He'd done his business, I'd bagged it, and we were both sweaty and gross. I left the poop bag on my porch while I went in to grab another trash bag because my bin was full and I figured I'd toss it all out together. Charlie bolted inside, and I forgot the poop bag on the porch. Completely forgot. Over the next week, this became a habit. I'd come back from our walk, leave the bag on the porch, get distracted with emails or projects or food, and the bag would just sit there. Sometimes for a day. Sometimes longer. The thing is, I live on a corner lot, which means a lot of foot traffic, especially from other dog walkers. Apparently, people noticed. I didn't. Then came the flyer. I got home one afternoon to find a neon orange paper taped to my door. Big black letters read, "Please be considerate. Someone is leaving dog waste outside their house, and it smells terrible. This is a public health issue. If you see something, say something." I looked down at my porch and, yep, there were 3 tied-up poop bags just hanging out in the sun like they were on vacation. I was mortified, but I didn't want to admit it was me. I panicked. I threw them all out, cleaned the porch, sprayed Febreze like a lunatic, and pretended like nothing happened. A few days later, my neighbor Tom, super friendly, early 50s, HOA board member, somehow always wearing khakis, caught me outside. He gave me a tight smile and said, "Hey, just so you know, we've had a few complaints. Someone's been leaving feces around. Not just on their porch, like in random places. Driveways, mailboxes. Even in one of those little free library boxes." I laughed nervously and said, "Wow, that's awful. Hope they catch the guy." Tom nodded, said something about security cameras, and left. And then the real horror began. A week later, I'm out walking Charlie in the morning, bleary-eyed and half asleep, when he does his business right next to my neighbor's hydrangeas. I bag it, as usual, and since I forgot to bring an extra poop bag holder that clips to the leash, I stupidly set it down at the edge of their yard, intending to grab it on my way back. Big mistake. I got distracted when Charlie saw a squirrel and lost his mind. We ended up doing a longer loop than expected, and I completely forgot about the bag. Guess who had a Ring doorbell? Guess who posted the footage in the neighborhood Facebook group? The video showed me casually dropping off what looked like a poop offering at their bushes and walking away like I owned the place. The caption, "Is this the poop bandit?" People lost it. Suddenly the comments were exploding. "I've seen this guy before. He walks that golden retriever every morning. He left a bag in my driveway last week. This is disgusting and needs to stop." They didn't blur my face. They didn't even try. My face was now synonymous with poop crime. To make things worse, I wasn't even responsible for half of the bags people were talking about. Apparently, some other lazy dog owners had been doing the same thing, but now I was the scapegoat.
The fall guy. The poop bandit.
One lady even printed out screenshots from the video and taped them to telephone poles. I'm not kidding. I saw my own face, holding a bag of poop, next to a missing cat poster and a garage sale ad. Like I was a wanted criminal. I couldn't leave my house without someone giving me side-eye. An old man yelled shame at me while watering his lawn. A group of kids pointed at me and laughed. One even called me Mr. Stinky. At this point, I should have just come clean. Apologized, explained the porch bags were mine, but the rest was a misunderstanding, maybe even offered to help clean up the neighborhood. But instead, I did the dumbest thing possible. I created a burner Facebook account and joined the neighborhood group under the name David K. I posted a long, dramatic message saying something like, "As a fellow dog owner and neighbor, I find the actions of this so-called poop bandit absolutely disgraceful. Let's keep our community clean and shame this menace into stopping." Yes, I literally tried to out-poop bandit the poop bandit. People loved it. They rallied behind David K. and started a poop watch. I saw people patrolling with flashlights at night. A guy even installed a motion sensor sprinkler to catch offenders in the act. And then, like an idiot, I got too cocky. One morning, while walking Charlie, I saw a poop bag in the gutter that definitely wasn't mine. I took a photo and posted it to the group as David K., with the caption, "Another fresh drop. Looks like the bandit is still at large." Only the photo's metadata was still intact, including the GPS coordinates. Someone noticed. Someone smart. It took less than an hour for someone to cross-reference the GPS data with Google Maps, realize it was taken literally in front of my house, and expose me. The fallout was nuclear. I was banned from the Facebook group. Someone egged my mailbox. Tom knocked on my door with the most passive-aggressive smile I've ever seen and said, "Well, at least now we know. Hope this is the end of it." I wanted to move. But instead, I issued a public apology in person at the HOA meeting, which, yes, I had to attend. I explained everything: Charlie, the porch bags, the forgotten hydrangea incident, even the David K. debacle.
People laughed.
Some forgave me. Some didn't. I've since earned back most of their trust. Charlie is now known as the Redeemed Retriever, a name some middle-aged woman put on his bandana at a community barbecue, and I've become obsessively clean on walks. I carry 3 extra bags, one of those mini pooper scoopers, and even hand out spares to other dog owners like a poop bag fairy. But every now and then, I'll be walking past someone's house, and I'll hear the faint whisper, "Poop bandit." Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. TIFU by crashing a wedding I thought I was invited to and accidentally ruining a $20,000 cake in the process. So this happened about a month ago, and I've just now emerged from my hole of shame and social exile to talk about it. For context, my cousin Emma and I were super close growing up. We're the same age, went to the same schools, and even lived on the same block until we were like 16. We sort of drifted apart after college, but we still exchange messages now and then, and she's one of those people where if we ran into each other after years apart, it'd feel like no time had passed. Anyway, she got engaged last year to a guy named Rob. I'd met him once at a family barbecue, and he seemed cool enough. Fast forward to this year, and I start seeing wedding planning updates from her on social media. Venue shots, dress hints, the whole 9 yards. I thought it was a little weird that I hadn't received a save the date, but I figured maybe they were doing a small destination thing, or just hadn't sent all the invites yet. Then comes early March, and I get a text from an unknown number. Hey, just a reminder that Emma's big day is April 6th. Ceremony starts at 3, reception at 6. I can't wait to see you there. I replied asking who it was, and they said, "It's Rachel from the planning team. Emma gave me your number." That sealed it for me. I was in. I ordered a suit upgrade because if I was going to see all my extended family again, I had to look good. Got a gift from the registry, a $150 air fryer, and even arranged time off from work. I was genuinely excited, and I hadn't been to a wedding in years. April 6th rolls around. I show up at the venue, a huge vineyard-style estate outside the city, early enough to catch some pre-ceremony mingling. I don't recognize most of the people there, but I figure it's Rob's side of the family. I spot a couple distant cousins and exchange some awkward hellos. No one seems surprised to see me, so I assume I'm fine. Then I spot Emma in the distance, taking pictures with the bridesmaids. She looks stunning. I don't get a chance to say hi because things are moving fast. They usher us to the ceremony spot, and I end up seated near the back. The ceremony is beautiful, the vows are heartfelt, and I'm even a little misty-eyed. Afterward, we move to the reception area, which is basically a large tented section of the estate with chandeliers, fairy lights, and a central dance floor. There's a huge buffet setup and, in the center, the most elaborate, ridiculous, multi-tiered cake I've ever seen in my life. It was decorated like a miniature cathedral. Like, this thing had spires and stained glass-looking sugar panels. I grab a drink, start chatting with some guy named Joel who said he worked with Rob, and we both end up standing near the cake, admiring it. Joel says something like, "I can't believe this thing cost 20 grand, and I laugh nervously, assuming he's joking. At some point, someone calls for a group photo. Joel and I both head in that direction. But here's where things take a turn. My phone buzzes, and as I check it while walking, I don't see that one of the tent ropes has slightly come loose and is hanging near the ground. My foot catches it. I stumble forward, straight, into
The cake.
Now, when I say into the cake, I mean through it. My full momentum carried me chest first into this edible Gothic monument. The table buckled. The cake exploded. I knocked over one of the decorative columns beside it for good measure. I ended up sprawled in a sugary pile of fondant, sponge, and pure shame. There was a collective gasp. Then silence. Then someone screamed. I think it was the wedding planner. Emma came running over, and her face went from confusion to horror to this dead-eyed look of, "I'm going to kill you with my bare hands." All I could say was, "I'm so sorry." Over and over again. I offered to pay for the cake. I offered to leave immediately. I was so mortified I didn't even realize my rental suit was soaked in some kind of raspberry filling, and I looked like a murder scene. Here's where the real punch in the gut came in. Emma looked at me and said, "Who even are you?" I froze. "It's me,
Matt.
your cousin." She blinked. "Matt Evans." I nodded. She goes, "I didn't invite you." Cue record scratch. Apparently, there was another Matt, her fiancé Rob's cousin, who was invited. I never got a save the date because it wasn't for me. That text from Rachel was meant for the other Matt, and she had my number saved from when I helped plan Emma's mom's surprise 60th birthday 3 years ago. Rachel never confirmed the last name when she sent the reminder. So not only did I crash a wedding I wasn't invited to, but I also destroyed the cake that had taken 3 people 3 days to assemble. And the best part? The real Matt showed up about 10 minutes later, in the same exact suit I was wearing, because we had both bought it from the same trending Instagram ad. I left before dinner was served. The air fryer gift was politely handed back to me at the tent entrance. I sat in my car in silence for 20 minutes before driving home, covered in frosting, listening to nothing but my own breathing and the sound of my soul dying a little more each second. I've since written Emma and Rob a long apology letter and offered to reimburse the cost of the cake. Rob was actually super chill about it and even laughed when he called to say, "Dude, the fact that you ate shit into the cake like a human wrecking ball kind of saved the party. People will talk about this for years." Emma hasn't responded. And that, folks, is how I managed to crash a wedding I wasn't invited to and obliterate a $20,000 cake in front of 150 strangers. TIFU by accidentally kidnapping my neighbor's dog and sparking a neighborhood-wide search party. This happened last weekend, and my social reputation in the neighborhood is currently on life support. Let me preface this by saying I am not a dog person. I don't dislike them, I've just never had one, never wanted one, and generally try to avoid anything involving poop bags. I live in a quiet cul-de-sac where most people know each other, or at least know of each other. We nod, we wave, we pretend to care about each other's lawn care routines. My next-door neighbor, Cheryl, is the unofficial queen of the street. She's got this small yappy Pomeranian named Waffles who wears seasonal outfits and gets birthday parties more elaborate than most children. Cheryl is intense. The type who can smell passive aggression and has a 100% attendance rate at HOA meetings. Saturday morning, I was taking out the trash and noticed this small, fluffy blur zip across my lawn. It was Waffles, no outfit, leash dragging behind her like she was on the run from the law. She bolted around my recycling bin, darted toward the sidewalk, and then looped back around. Now here's where I messed up. Cheryl wasn't in sight, and Waffles looked like she had no intentions of stopping. My human instincts kicked in. I dropped the trash bag and lunged after her like a linebacker. After 3 laps around the hydrangeas and a dramatic tumble that ruined my last pair of clean sweatpants, I managed to catch her. At this point, I assumed 2 things. 1. Waffles had escaped and needed to be returned. 2. Cheryl would be grateful. Both were wrong. Not wanting to leave her loose again, I brought Waffles into my house. I didn't have a leash or anything, so I improvised and tied her to the leg of my dining table with an old shoelace. She barked nonstop for the first 20 minutes, then calmed down after I offered her a slice of turkey. I texted a friend who has a dog, asking what the protocol is in these situations, and they suggested just holding on to her until I could contact Cheryl. Except I had no way to contact Cheryl. I didn't have her number. We're not texting neighbor close. I figured I'd just wait until I saw her out looking and then return Waffles. This is where things started spiraling. About an hour later, I hear sirens. A cop car slowly cruises through the neighborhood, and then a second one follows. A few neighbors start congregating outside. I see Cheryl, hysterical, talking to an officer, holding a leash and a small dog hoodie. She's crying.
Crying.
I panic. I realize I probably should have said something earlier. So I grab Waffles, who now smells like turkey and possibly a little like my gym socks, and walk outside like I'm delivering a pizza. Everyone turns to look at me. Cheryl gasps. A few neighbors audibly whisper. One of them, this guy Steve, who I know has a Ring cam, starts recording on his phone. "Where did you find her?" Cheryl cries, running over. And for some reason, instead of just saying the truth, I stammer out. She came into my yard, and I didn't know who she was, so I brought her inside. This was apparently the wrong answer. "You took her inside?" Cheryl's face shifts from joy to horror. "You kidnapped her." At this point, the cop comes over, asking me to clarify what happened. I explain, very awkwardly, that I thought she was lost. I didn't have Cheryl's number, and I was just trying to help. I admit I tied her to my table. I even mentioned the turkey. Steve is still recording. The cop is surprisingly chill and takes down my statement. Cheryl is holding Waffles like she's just survived a tornado. A few neighbors shoot me that tight-lipped smile you reserve for people who've accidentally run over your mailbox. I go back inside, mortified. I figure that's the end of it. But no. Cheryl makes a post in our neighborhood Facebook group that evening, complete with a blurry screenshot of me holding Waffles like Simba in The Lion King. She thanks the community for rallying together and reminds everyone to be vigilant because you never know who might take liberties with someone's pet. My inbox is suddenly filled with random messages like, "Glad Waffles is okay," and "Maybe next time just knock on the door?" Someone even left a dog treat on my porch with a note that just said "NO." I spent the next 2 days being referred to as the dog guy and had to clarify multiple times that I didn't steal waffles. She literally ran into my yard like a furry missile. I was just the idiot who overreacted and turned a minor dog chase into an unintentional pet napping incident. The kicker? Cheryl has now installed a small GPS tracker on Waffle's collar and posted about it with the hashtag never again. I've started taking out the trash in the dead of night. TIFU by accidentally taking my neighbor's cat on a weekend road trip and getting blackmailed into attending a furry convention. So this happened last weekend, and I still can't believe it unfolded the way it did. For context, I, 29M, live in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Oregon. I work remotely, have an old Subaru Outback, and an affinity for hiking and last-minute camping trips. My neighbor, who I'll call Trevor, is a very eccentric individual in his early 30s. He always wears fingerless gloves, calls everyone champ, and owns an obese orange cat named Bartholomew. Bart for short. Now, Bart has a reputation. He's basically the king of the cul-de-sac. He wanders into people's yards, naps in flower beds, and occasionally yells at nothing. He's got that Garfield energy. Despite being an outdoor adventurer, he always returns home. Trevor treats him like royalty. He once hosted a birthday party for Bart and invited the whole street. So Friday afternoon, I decide to do a spontaneous solo weekend camping trip at Crater Lake. I throw my gear into the car, fill up the cooler, and hit the road. About an hour in, I hear some weird rustling from the back. I figure it's my tent or maybe a bag that tipped over. But then I hear a very distinct, irritated meow. I look in the rearview mirror, and there, standing on my sleeping bag, is the round, unmistakable loaf that is Bartholomew. He locks eyes with me like, "How dare you disturb my slumber, peasant." Panic mode. I pull over into a gas station, trying to figure out how the hell he got in. My best guess? He snuck in while I was packing the trunk. He's sneaky and has done it before with other neighbors' cars, but they always caught him before leaving. At this point, I'm too far out to turn around. Also, Bart seems chill. So I think, maybe it's fate. Maybe this cat just needs a break too. I pick up some cat food at the gas station and continue the trip, planning to bring him back Sunday night. Fast forward to the campsite. Bart is thriving. He's sitting on a rock like Mufasa, judging passing squirrels. I've got some great photos of him looking majestic in front of the lake. I even gave him a little neckerchief I found in my gear. People at the campground loved him. I told everyone we were road buddies. I was kind of proud. Then Sunday evening rolls around. I get home, and Trevor is standing on his porch looking like he's aged 10 years. The second he sees me and the fat orange traitor, he yells, "Where the hell have you been with my son?" That's right. He calls Bart his son. I try to explain. I apologize, swear it was accidental, tell him how loved Bart was by the campers. Trevor is not amused. He demands I come inside to talk about consequences. Inside, his house is odd. It's decorated like a mix between a medieval tavern and a gamer's dream. Swords on the walls, posters of anthropomorphic wolves with abs, lava lamps. There's a scent of incense and Febreze. Trevor makes me sit down. Then he says, "You owe me." I'm thinking maybe he wants money or a gift card or something. But no. Trevor tells me he's been planning to attend a furry convention in Portland next weekend. Apparently, he's been too nervous to go alone. He says Bart going on this vision quest with me was a sign from the Furtiverse. He insists I now owe him a weekend of emotional support in a full fursona. I laugh. I think he's joking. He is not joking. He proceeds to show me an entire wolf costume he's had custom-made, just in case he ever had to induct someone. It even has a name, Shadow Pounce. At this point, I want out. But Trevor is very persuasive. He says if I don't go, he'll tell the HOA I catnapped his son and traumatized him in the woods. He has videos of Bart in the wild, looking confused in slow motion, with Enya playing in the background. He's already edited it. Says he'll call it the Wilderness Years and post it on the neighborhood Facebook group. So, I went. I wore the damn costume. Shadow Pounce. We drove up together. Trevor, whose persona is a cyber jaguar named Flux, introduced me to everyone like we were long-lost pack mates. I had no idea what I was doing. There were workshops, tail maintenance seminars, something called Pause and Reflect. Here's the thing though. They were really nice people. Like, yeah, it was bizarre at first. But the vibe? Welcoming. Zero judgment. People from all walks of life just vibing in faux fur and bad puns. I even started getting into character. Turns out Shadow Pounce is a rogue scout with a tragic backstory and a passion for forest justice. I got compliments. I won a tail dance-off. I have never been more confused or alive. When the weekend ended, Trevor fist-bumped me and said, "You did good, champ." Bart would be proud. Bart, by the way, didn't come. Too much stimulation, apparently. Now it's the next week. I've returned to normal life. But yesterday, someone slipped a little paw print card into my mailbox. Inside it said, "The pack remembers. See you at Hellfest." I have questions. So many. But also, maybe, moral of the story, always check your trunk before driving off. And never underestimate how far one fat orange cat can take you. TIFU by accidentally tripping my boss into a chocolate fountain at a corporate event while dressed as a banana. So this happened last Saturday during our annual corporate retreat, which my company somehow manages to turn into a bizarre mix of networking, awkward team building, and frat party level chaos. Every year, there's a theme. This year's theme was fruitful partnerships. Yeah, someone in marketing got a bonus for that one. Now, because I'm that person who always volunteers too quickly before asking questions, I ended up being one of the designated fruit mascots for the weekend. HR thought it would be hilarious and on-brand to have people walking around in full fruit costumes, grapes, strawberries, pineapples, you name it. I drew the short straw or the long peel and got assigned the banana suit. It was foam, slightly too big, and had a weird bend at the top that kept knocking into door frames like a cursed metronome. The retreat was hosted at this super bougie resort with these massive ballrooms, gourmet catering, and an open bar, which, let's be honest, is both a blessing and a threat. By the evening, everyone was feeling loose. Somewhere between the Trust Fall workshop and the salsa dancing crash course, I'd had 3 sangrias and a tequila shot I didn't ask for but accepted because it came in a hollowed-out kiwi. Then came the fruit parade. Apparently, part of the evening's entertainment was a slow procession of the fruit mascots through the ballroom while the DJ played I Heard It Through the Grapevine. There was a stage. There were lights. It was meant to be fun and lighthearted. But the banana suit had a mind of its own. The feet of the costume had no grip, like trying to walk on buttered glass. I was walking behind the CEO, who, in her infinite wisdom, was dressed as a grape cluster, complete with inflatable purple balls that jiggled with every step. She's a very no-nonsense woman. Yale MBA. Calm in a crisis. Definitely not someone you want to trip. As we paraded past the chocolate fountain table, yes, there was a literal chocolate fondue station the size of a small volcano, I felt the tip of my banana suit bend forward and catch on one of the cords running under the table skirt. Time slowed. I tried to correct my step, but the foam constricted my movement like a medieval punishment device. I lunged forward to catch myself, but instead went full banana torpedo into the back of the CEO. She yelped. Not screamed. Yelped like a surprised pug. Her inflatable grapes burst dramatically as she flew forward, arms flailing, and landed dead center in the chocolate fountain with a slap that somehow silenced the music and the chatter in the room.
People gasped.
One guy dropped his shrimp skewer in horror. There she was, our fearless leader, lying face down in a molten waterfall of Belgian dark chocolate. It soaked her hair, her glasses,
Her dignity.
and somehow, one of the chocolate-coated strawberries on a stick had impaled itself perfectly in the grape cluster around her waist like some cursed fruit kebab. I froze. The DJ froze. Everyone froze. Then the fountain made this gurgling noise, probably from her brief full-body immersion, and for some ungodly reason, that was what broke the silence. Someone near the back actually snorted, and that triggered a ripple of laughter so loud it echoed off the chandeliers. I rushed forward to help her, Banana's suit flapping wildly, which only made everything worse. Every movement made the foam bend or knock over something else. I managed to grab her hand and pull her up, but the suit twisted, and I accidentally wiped chocolate across her entire left cheek with my banana elbow. She stared at me like she was recalculating every life choice that had brought her to this moment. And then she said, deadpan, "You slipped, didn't you?" I nodded, so fast I almost fell again. She looked down at her dripping self, then back at me. Then she said, "Let's get you out of that suit before someone thinks this was planned." We shuffled out of the room like chocolate-drenched royalty and her idiotic banana valet. HR followed us, giggling like she was in high school again. Apparently, someone from accounting got the whole thing on video, and it hit our internal Slack channel within 10 minutes under the title Grape Escape. I spent the rest of the night sitting in a towel in a maintenance closet while someone tried to power wash the chocolate out of the foam costume. The CEO eventually changed into gym clothes and returned to the party, sipping white wine like nothing had happened. Absolute legend. Monday morning, I walked into the office and found a bunch of bananas duct taped to my monitor. Someone left me a fruit basket with a tiny card that read, "Asterisk, you're unbelievable. Asterisk, I deserve that." I do. Even the CEO walked past my desk and said, "Nice to see you upright today." The video now has over 20,000 views on our company's private YouTube channel. I'm considering changing departments or possibly fleeing the country. Moral of the story: never volunteer without asking questions. Never drink out of a kiwi. And never, under any circumstances, walk behind your CEO in a banana suit near a chocolate fountain. TIFU by accidentally kidnapping my girlfriend's grandmother. I, 28M, have been dating my girlfriend Emily, 26F, for just over a year. Things have been going great. She's sweet, funny, beautiful, and, until about 72 hours ago, still convinced I was a functioning adult. But that was before the incident. Emily's grandmother, Doris, let's call her that because it's her name, is 84 years old, fiercely independent, and lives about 2 hours away in a retirement community. She doesn't drive anymore, and Emily usually visits her every few weeks. This weekend, Emily had a work trip come up last minute, so she asked if I could do her a favor and drive Doris to a family lunch they were all planning on Sunday. She'd already cleared it with her grandma, and Doris was thrilled. Of course I said yes. I'd met Doris once before, and she'd given me the "he's got good shoulders" approval, which, according to Emily, is high praise. Now, here's where the long, spiraling tunnel into madness begins. Sunday morning, I get up early, get some coffee, plug the retirement community's address into my phone, and hit the road. I get there around 10 a.m., buzz in at the gate, and tell the receptionist I'm here to pick up Doris for lunch. They direct me to the guest entrance and call up to her unit. 5 minutes later, a tiny woman shuffles out in a lilac cardigan and a wide-brimmed sun hat, dragging a tote bag behind her. I hop out of the car, greet her, offer to carry her bag, and she smiles like I just cured her arthritis. She gets into the car, calls me such a strapping young man, and off we go. We talk for most of the drive. She tells me about her late husband, her bridge club, and how she's been trying to grow tomatoes on her balcony, with little success. She's delightful. At one point she asks if we can stop by a bakery she likes. I say sure, and we make a quick detour for her to get a loaf of what she calls real bread. About 20 minutes before we get to Emily's parent house, I get a call from Emily. She sounds off. "Hey," she says, "just checking in. Did you end up picking up Grandma?" I say yes and tell her we're almost there, and that she's even got fresh sourdough in tow. There's a pause. "You picked up Grandma Doris from Green Oaks, right?" I glance at the GPS and say, "Yeah, Green Hills Retirement Community." "Wait, Green Hills." Another pause. A much longer one. "Babe," Emily says slowly, "my grandma lives at Green Oaks." "Green Oaks? Who the hell is in your car?" My heart stops. I look at the sweet old lady next to me, who's humming along to Frank Sinatra and patting the bread in her lap like a newborn. I don't say anything right away. I just slowly pull the car over. Doris?" I ask. "Yes, dear? I think I may have made a mistake." It turns out I had gone to the wrong retirement community. There are two in the area with nearly identical names, 10 minutes apart. I had put the wrong one into Google Maps. When I told the receptionist I was picking up Doris, she didn't question it. Turns out they also have a Doris living there. So they buzzed the other Doris, who apparently has memory issues, and she just assumed I was a relative coming to take her out. And she got in the car. With me. A complete stranger. So now I'm pulled over on the side of the road with a very sweet but very confused elderly woman who has no idea that I am not her grandson, nephew, or friend of the family. I explain as gently as I can that I'm not who she thought I was, that there's been a mix-up, and that we're going to get her back home right away. To her credit, she takes it well. She just laughs and says, "Well, this explains why you didn't look familiar. I thought maybe I was having a spell again." I immediately call the retirement home to explain what happened, and they're not chill about it. Apparently, this constitutes unauthorized removal of a resident, which is technically kidnapping. They've already called her emergency contact, and we're considering contacting the police. I swear to them that I'm on my way back, and I drive like I've got 5 stars in GTA, and the cops on my tail. When I pull into the parking lot, there's a very stern-looking woman waiting out front who introduces herself as the head nurse and proceeds to give me the full, "Do you understand how serious this is?" treatment. I apologize profusely. Doris, bless her, comes to my defense and says she had a lovely time and that he has good shoulders, just like Frank did, which is apparently enough for them to not call the actual police. Meanwhile, I get a call from Emily's actual grandmother, the correct Doris, who has been waiting on a bench at Green Oaks for an hour, thinking I ditched her. I had to drive straight there with my tail tucked so far between my legs I could taste it, apologize all over again, and then drive her. Asterisk the right Doris asterisk. To the lunch, where I arrived 2 hours late and had to explain the whole saga to her entire extended family, who found it hilarious. Emily's dad gave me a standing ovation. Her uncle offered me a flask. Her grandmother called me the boy who kidnapped seniors, and now it's a thing. 3 days later, Emily is still laughing about it. Her grandmother called me yesterday to ask if I could take her friend Bernice out for lunch, next time by accident. TIFU by pretending to be an old man for over a year and accidentally becoming the leader of a senior citizen bowling league. This whole mess started with a free pizza coupon. About a year ago, I moved into a new apartment complex on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just a decent one-bedroom with weird carpet and a noisy radiator. One evening, a flyer slid under my door. Golden Strike's Senior Bowling League, free pizza night. I love pizza. I mean, I really love pizza. But here's the kicker. The event was for seniors 65 plus. I was 28. I was broke, hungry, and thought, how strict could they be? So I threw on my grandpa's old cardigan, some wire-rimmed glasses with the lenses popped out, a pair of beige slacks, and used an eyebrow pencil to add a little salt and pepper to my beard. I even leaned on an umbrella like it was a cane. The transformation was ridiculous. I looked like a Halloween costume version of a retiree. I hobbled in, ready to grab a slice and bounce. But then I made eye contact with Marlene. She was 72, wore a glittery bowling shirt, and had the kind of jawline that suggested she ate gravel for breakfast. She clapped me on the back, almost knocking me over, and said, "You must be the new guy, Lenny, right?" My dumbass said yes. Apparently, there was a Lenny expected that night. A friend of a nephew or something. They just hadn't met him yet. Suddenly, I wasn't just crashing for pizza, I was inducted into the Golden Strikes. Now, I should have bailed right then, but they handed me a slice of Supreme and a root beer, and honestly, I hadn't eaten that well in a week. I figured I'd ghost them after that one night. But then they asked if I could bowl. Here's the thing, I can bowl. Not professionally or anything, but I played in college for fun. So I picked up a house ball, lined up, and rolled a near-perfect strike. The league hadn't seen someone under 80 bowl like that in a while, so naturally they thought I was a legend. From that moment, I wasn't just Lenny. I was Lightning Lenny, a supposedly 68-year-old retired math teacher with a wrist of gold and a heart full of grit. I kept showing up. At first, it was for the free snacks and camaraderie. But then, I started to like it. I liked them. They were funny, supportive, and impressively petty about their bowling scores. I crafted an entire backstory. Divorced twice. No kids. Used to teach pre-calc in Minnesota. Loved crossword puzzles and hated the government. They ate it up. Over time, I even started doing crosswords to sell the lie. Months went by. I got good, really good. My average hit 210. I became the anchor bowler. We went from last place in the league to the top 3. The other teams, mostly comprised of chain-smoking ex-welders and cranky librarians, started to fear us. Then came the playoffs. Our captain, Jerry, was hospitalized for a hip replacement 2 days before the final. A vote was called for interim captain. Marlene nominated me. The others agreed, without hesitation. And just like that, I, a 28-year-old fraud, was leading a team of senior citizens to championship glory under the alias of Lightning Lenny. The finals were intense. The opposing team, the spare change, had a dude named Earl who bowled like he had robotic arms. But we held our own. It came down to the final frame. I bowled 3 strikes in a row. We won. There were tears. There was a standing ovation. They hoisted me on their frail shoulders and declared me an inspiration to older athletes everywhere. Afterward, they threw a surprise party in my honor at a local Applebee's. That's where everything went to hell. See, I hadn't considered that the league had sponsors. Or that one of those sponsors would be the local news. During dessert, molten lava cake, incredible, a cheerful young reporter approached me with a cameraman and asked if I'd do a segment for Golden Generations, a piece on active seniors defying age stereotypes. My brain short-circuited. But everyone was chanting my name, and Marlene winked at me, so I nodded. The segment aired the next morning. It wasn't just a short clip. It was a full-on 3-minute feature with slow-motion shots of me bowling, dramatic music, and quotes like, "You're never too old to strike gold." My mom saw it. She called me absolutely howling with laughter. Then she posted the video on Facebook with the caption, "My son, the senior sensation." It went viral. And now, the internet did what it does best. They started digging. Within 48 hours, someone from high school tagged me in the video, saying, "Isn't this you, dude?" I tried to lay low, but one of the Golden Strikes had a niece on TikTok who saw the call-out post. Word spread like wildfire. By the next league meeting, everyone knew. I showed up to the alley, fully prepared to apologize, return the team shirt, and walk away in shame. But they weren't mad. In fact, they were howling even harder than my mom. Jerry, now back and high on pain meds, said, "Son, I haven't laughed this hard since Nixon resigned." Marlene looked at me, grinned, and said, "Well, at least you're not actually a math teacher. You bowl better than one." They didn't kick me out. They said I'd earn my spot. The league commissioner, a man named Gus who wears sunglasses indoors and runs a shrimp farm, amended the rulebook to say, exceptions may be made for honorary seniors with exceptional game and good vibes. So now I bowl with them every Thursday. Still under the name Lenny. The nickname stuck. People recognize me as that fake old guy from the bowling thing. And I've even been invited to speak at a senior wellness retreat next month. Marlene and I go out for root beer floats after every match. She says I remind her of her third husband. I try not to think too hard about what that means. Moral of the story? Never underestimate the power of a good costume, a consistent hook shot, and the unconditional acceptance of a bowling team named after arthritis medication. TIFU, by thinking I could fake my way through a funeral. This happened last weekend, and I'm still in emotional recovery, so I figured the internet might as well get to enjoy my humiliation. Some quick background. I'm a freelance photographer. I mostly do weddings, engagements, and family portraits. A friend of mine, let's call her Jasmine, reached out and asked if I could do a memorial event for a relative of hers who had passed. She knew I didn't usually do those types of gigs, but she said it would mean a lot, and that the family was pretty laid back and just wanted some candid, respectful shots of people celebrating the deceased's life. Sounded easy enough. She also mentioned there would be a little performance art toward the end, and to make sure I captured that. I asked what kind of art, and she just said, "It'll make sense in context." Spoiler alert, it absolutely did not. Anyway, I show up on Saturday morning at this large house in a very affluent neighborhood. I'm wearing my usual professional gear. Black shirt, black pants, nice shoes. Camera bag slung across my shoulder. People are gathering in the backyard, which has been set up with chairs, tables, a small stage, and this absolutely massive blown-up picture of an old man in sunglasses, holding a martini. This, I learn, is Uncle Ray. Everyone's dressed semi-formally. There's a jazz band playing softly, and I start taking candid shots of people laughing, hugging, sharing stories. Pretty chill, honestly. About an hour in, someone taps a wine glass and announces that speeches will begin. The first few are what you'd expect, nostalgic, heartfelt, kind of funny. Then Jasmine gets up. She gives a sweet eulogy about Uncle Ray's unapologetic lifestyle and boundary-pushing creativity. That phrase should have been my warning sign. Instead, I was just thinking about lighting and angles. After her speech, she says, "And now, as a final tribute to Ray's spirit, we'd like to perform the piece he planned himself before he passed." That got a small laugh, which confused me. I chalked it up to sentimentality. So now this middle-aged man in all black steps onto the little stage. I assume he's a performer. Maybe a friend of Uncle Ray's from the theater world or something. The music cuts. The man takes a long pause and says, very solemnly, "To truly know Ray was to know freedom, to know chaos, to know the limits of flesh." And then this guy rips off his shirt and yells, "Unleash the pelicans." I freeze. Out of nowhere, 2 large cages on either side of the yard swing open, and 6 actual pelicans flap into the air. Have you ever seen a pelican fly directly into a party full of elderly people holding wine glasses and shrimp cocktails? I now have. One of the birds flew straight into a centerpiece, another landed on someone's shoulder like a demented pirate sidekick, and one dive-bombed the buffet table like it had a vendetta against pasta salad. Everyone starts screaming, ducking, laughing, some kind of chaotic mix of all three. The performer guy starts spinning in circles with his arms out, chanting something about sky spirits, while the pelicans wreak absolute havoc. I'm frozen. Like, I physically cannot move. I'm halfway between raising my camera to shoot and running for cover. Then Jasmine, who is laughing so hard she's crying, gestures at me and shouts, "Don't just stand there. This is the performance art. Get the shots." So now I'm chasing wild birds around a garden party, trying to photograph them as tastefully as possible. I take a few blurry shots of a pelican midair, another one of a lady clutching her pearls as a bird lands on the buffet chafing dish, and one particularly harrowing image of an old man trying to fend off a bird with his cane while still holding a mini quiche. Eventually someone, I think it was the saxophone player, manages to herd the birds back toward their cages, using what I can only describe as the power of intimidation and brisk walking. The chaos dies down. The guests start to recover. A few are pissed, but most are just kind of dazed, sipping rose and pretending like this was all totally normal. Jasmine hugs me, says I nailed it, and tells me to grab a plate of food before I go. At this point, I'm mentally exhausted, smell vaguely like bird, and just want to go home. I load the photos onto my laptop that night, and to my horror, they're good. Like National Geographic meets high society funeral kind of good. There's one shot in particular that I know is going to haunt me forever. A perfectly timed image of a pelican mid-flight, wings extended, while a group of horrified guests scatter below in a perfect spiral, like a Renaissance painting of fear and regret. I sent over the photos the next day. Jasmine messages me back and says, "These are iconic. Uncle Ray would be proud." She then sends me a link to an article from 3 years ago titled, "Uncle Ray Arrested for Releasing Doves into Courthouse During Divorce Hearing." I think I finally understand who Uncle Ray was. So yeah, TIFU by thinking a memorial gig would be low stakes and easy money. I now have a permanent folder on my desktop called Bird Funeral and a deeper appreciation for why I normally stick to weddings. This happened about 2 weeks ago, and I've only now stopped dying of embarrassment long enough to write about it. I, 28M, recently started dating someone incredible. Let's call her Claire, 27F. She's smart, funny, drop-dead gorgeous, and, apparently, very close with her family. So close, in fact, that she invited me to her parents' house for dinner to meet everyone. I was nervous, but I figured it was a good sign she wanted to bring me around so early on. Her parents live in a beautiful old house a few towns over, kind of in the woods, but still in a nice neighborhood. Her mom is a retired elementary school teacher, her dad's a semi-retired contractor, and she has a younger brother, 24M, and older sister, 30F, with 2 young kids. So this was not just dinner. This was a full-blown family gathering with kids, spouses, grandparents, the whole damn cast. I'm trying to be the charming boyfriend, helping set the table, laughing at dad's corny jokes, answering a million questions about my job. I'm a freelance animator, which sounds way cooler than it pays, and doing my best not to sweat through my shirt. So far, so good. Now, at one point before dinner, I excuse myself to use the bathroom. Claire tells me it's the second door on the left upstairs.
Easy.
I head up, find the door, and do my business. Here's where things start to go downhill. While I'm washing my hands, I hear this light click behind me. The kind of sound that doesn't scream danger, but makes your brain go, huh? I turn around, and the goddamn doorknob is on the floor. Not just loose. The whole thing had apparently been rigged with duct tape or something, and it just straight up dropped off the door when I closed it. I try to open the door, anyway, nothing. Try to jimmy the knob back into the hole, nope. This thing is not budging. I'm locked in the upstairs bathroom of my girlfriend's parents' house, and nobody knows. I bang a little. Not too much, because I don't want to freak anyone out. I text Claire. Hey, kinda stuck in the bathroom upstairs, lol. Doorknob fell off. She doesn't respond. I later find out her phone was charging in the kitchen.
Great.
I wait a bit, thinking someone will come looking. 10 minutes pass. Then 20. I try calling her, no answer. Her dad. I don't even have his number. I'm pacing now. The tiny bathroom window looks out over the backyard. I open it, it's maybe a 6-foot drop to a flower bed. Not terrible, but the window is small. I test it. I might be able to fit through, but only if I strip down. I spend a good 5 minutes debating whether to yell or climb. I have horrible memories of kids yelling out bathroom windows in elementary school.
I don't want to be that guy.
But I also don't want to be found in here like some Victorian ghost. So I decide, screw it. I'll climb out. I strip down to my boxers, I don't want my clothes to snag, and slowly start easing myself out. It's not a graceful process. I'm halfway out the window, belly down, when I hear the unmistakable sound of children laughing. I glance down. Claire's sister and her 2 kids are playing in the backyard. They're facing the house. They're looking directly up at me. A grown man dangling out of a second-story window in nothing but boxer briefs like some kind of budget superhero. The sister screams. One of the kids points and yells. He's naked. I try to scramble back into the bathroom, but I lose my grip and land ass first in the flower bed. Dirt everywhere. One sandal comes flying off. I try to play it cool. I'm okay. I yell, but that only makes things worse. The dad comes rushing out with a rake like he's ready to fight off a bear. Claire runs out after him, her face going from concern to horrified to laughing in about 2 seconds. Her mom comes out holding what I think was a tray of meatloaf. Eventually, between the explanations and the apology tour, they piece together what happened. Apparently, that bathroom door's been busted for a while. The knob was a temporary fix. A fix no one told me about. They were surprisingly cool about it. Her dad helped me up, handed me my other sandal, and said, "Well, now you've really broken the ice." Her sister couldn't look me in the eye the rest of the night, though I heard her whispering to Claire that I had nice legs. So, maybe not all bad. We stayed for dinner. I borrowed an old pair of gym shorts and a t-shirt that said, "World's okayest plumber." The kids kept asking if I was going to climb any more windows. Claire held my hand under the table and kept laughing every time she looked at me. As mortifying as it was, I guess it did make me memorable. Claire says her dad brings me up every time the door squeaks, like, better fix that before our boy does another somersault into the begonias. We've been laughing about it since, but let me tell you, nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for meeting your girlfriend's extended family with a mud-covered butt and no pants.
So yeah,
TIFU by trying to escape a broken bathroom and flashing an entire wholesome family dinner. Still not sure if they see me as part of the family or the guy who dropped out of the sky in his underwear. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.